Travel isn't just about destinations. It's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Relebogile Mabocha, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place. Whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
It's so exciting, first of all, to share a story with you of radio listenership that really went sort of transcontinental, because sitting with me in studio are two CapeTalk listeners, and I guess it's not quite a year ago, we were all in the grips of election fever. South Africans were going to the polls. We were on air talking about where we'd voted and how long we'd queued and who'd found an easy queue where, etc. And in the middle of that show, I received a message from Anchen saying, "We've been listening to you riding our motorbikes across the Balkans." And I think they were feeling very far from home that day as they listened to all the other listeners' stories of where and how they had gone to vote. And to be fair, she was very far from home because they were traversing some very little-known back roads of countries that are not, sort of, shall we say, on the main tourist circuit. And it's not something they were doing for the first time either. So I immediately wrote back to her to say, I want to hear more about this trip when you're back. And they're back. So they're here in studio, and they are Anchen Sass and her husband Bernd. If you're on Instagram, you might already know them through their profile, which is called onourbikes.life. And that is because their travels on their motorbikes have taken them through some of the most exciting adventures of their life in very beautiful and undiscovered places. So thanks for joining us in studio. Welcome back to South Africa, and welcome to CapeTalk in person.
Thanks for having us.
It gave me quite a thrill, I have to say, to know that we were being streamed somewhere. I think it was Romania, Bulgaria.
Yes.
Where were you that day, Anchen?
We were crossing borders between Romania and Bulgaria.
Yep.
So we knew we were for about 6 hours on the road, and having you in the helmet was just unreal. Yeah.
It's unreal for me to think that you were listening to us that way. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, though. Let's start with the story of you two and the bikes. Did you meet through bikes, or did bikes become a thing that you decided to do together? Bernd?
When I went to varsity, I had a bike, and then we had our children, and then you don't take a bike. You sell the bike and you become parents.
Responsible person.
And when the children were out of the house, etc., we said, well, it's time to rekindle the passion. And that's how we started. We only had one bike, and then COVID came, and then Anchen said maybe she needs to learn to ride a bike. So she's only been riding since 2020, and she rides her own bike.
Yeah. I thought I was the only person who sat on a bike for the first time, I think, at the age of 38, and I thought I'd left it quite late, but I'm not alone in that. Yeah. How long did it take to catch up and feel sort of secure enough to start exploring?
It's actually still taking time. so sort of I tend to jump off quite often. We drive very slowly, I have to say. We sort of do 30, 40 k's an hour, mostly on gravel roads. So yeah, I bail quite often, and I've got him in my ears, and he will choose the roads and say, wait, watch out there, watch out there. So,
a real team effort, but strong. One that is taking you to some incredible places. Now, the trip in the Balkans was your second major expedition. The first was a 2-year trip through East Africa, if I understand correctly. Tell us a little bit more about where you went and what you saw.
Well, the reason we did the East Africa was because everybody talks about the African continent being so dangerous and you can't do it, etc. And we thought it's our home turf, so let's do it. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be the best continent to travel. The people are the best. The roads are very challenging, but it is our home continent. And if something went wrong, we could always come back to Cape Town. And we did some 40,000 kilometers in that time.
40,000 kilometers uninterrupted. Did you leave and go for one stretch, or did you do bits and pieces, Anchen?
So we do little U-turns. So we went the first year, we did about 5 months, and then came back sort of because over Christmas, Cape Town is a nicer place to be around when the children come home. Okay. So we usually travel between April and December. That's our times, and then the other times we'll be back home.
Okay, so you come home in between, recharge, regroup, have a nice long bath, sleep in a comfortable bed.
Absolutely.
It's not like that on the road, I would imagine, Bernd. Tell us a little bit about life on the road.
No, life on the road is we're minimalistic. Whatever we have in our 2 panniers is what we take along. So it'll be like 2 shirts, 2 pants, 2 socks, and it'll be camping gear. And we would try and camp most of the time. Okay. And the roads would always be ideally not tar, because that's dangerous, and we like the gravel and the passes, and where you meet people, because the people are the ones that help you, and they are friendly, and it's just amazing.
And you don't meet people if you're hurtling by at 120 kilometers an hour, whereas going slowly going nowhere slowly, as they say, is the way to stop. And you must, I would imagine, Anchen, also get a sense of appreciating the surroundings, the views, as well as the people along the way when you're traveling at that kind of speed.
Yeah, especially also in being on a motorbike. I always say all your senses. You smell the flowers you pass by. You hear the people. Because of my sort of motorbike skills being limited, I need to stop every hour to rest my brain. And then the moment you stop, you've got like crowds of people around you, and that actually is part of the goodness of being on a motorbike, because you stop often and you intervene with people the whole time.
Yeah. Have you, in that trip in Africa, you've said, Bernd, the people were fantastic. You didn't have security issues and things. Did it all just go smoothly? Did anything go wrong on that trip?
No, we had issues. I got malaria. Anchen got a seizure. We had an accident. So those things do happen, but that's part of the territory. And yet we can talk that everything went better than expected. The hospital in Lusaka was mind-blowing,
Okay.
So we're humbled that it's actually not so bad in Africa. It is actually phenomenal.
Yeah, it's such an important message to share this, because we hear so much of the opposite stereotype, that to hear from somebody who's been there and can actually say, you know what, we had an amazing trip and the hospital was world class. It's like I felt last week hearing the international universities who spoke to us say, your NSC matric is really good and we recognize it and like your students when they come to our university. It was a kind of a moment to reset our own sort of the messages we've allowed ourselves to absorb to some extent. Now, it was inevitable that the bike enthusiasts are demanding why I haven't yet asked you what motorbikes you are riding. Let's answer that before we talk about the next leg of the big adventure. What bikes are you on, Bernd?
They've got two wheels. It's a BMW 700 and 800 2017.
Old bikes, so they don't mind bashing.
Okay.
And they're basically identical, so we can fix what we do in the one, we do in the other one. And it's light enough to pick up. Or just light enough to pick up.
And I would imagine it's almost inevitable that you would have punctures and some kind of mechanical failures along the road. Are you able to deal with all of those yourselves?
Well, he said so nicely, we fix it. There's no we. I drop the bike or I do something, and I've got a mechanic, and he does the whole bike. He does the oil changes, he services tires.
And I go, yay, when Anchen drops a bike, it gives me purpose.
Gives you something to do. Are those skills you've just learned by doing, or did you sort of prepare for this trip by really upskilling yourself?
No, I'm very practical, so
it comes naturally to you.
It's a hobby, yeah.
Okay. So Keith asking about costs of this kind of travel. He's saying, I imagine a lot of it will be the cost of fuel, and that's obviously going to vary from country to country. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you fund this way of life? Because I'm sure it's inspiring people listening it, wondering, how do I get to do that?
Well, traveling for us is actually cheaper than staying in Cape Town. We've done the budget, and when you camp and things like that, a lot of time it's wild camping. Your petrol, without a doubt, is the most expensive part. Food, well, as you go into Africa or even the whole Balkans, food would be aubergines, tomato, whatever you buy on the side of the road. There is no ShopRite, Checkers, Pick and Pay, Woolworths. Those things don't exist up there. So food is very cheap. You're not going to get a bottle of wine there. It's not affordable. So you drink water and juice.
I think you live extremely simple.
You live simply.
And that's part of our goodness of the trip, is that we can minimize. So it's not your typical travel budget. Definitely not. Yeah.
Just for anybody who came in midway to this conversation, Anchen and Bernd are with us in studio. They are CapeTalk listeners, and the first time we heard from them, they were on their motorbikes traveling across the border from Romania into Bulgaria on election day last year. And Anchen messaged me to say, we're listening to you in our helmets as you share all of these stories of everybody queuing up to cast their votes. And I'm so just thrilled to have them with us to tell us now about what it was that took them there and to share their travel adventures with them. If you've got questions, as John and Keith have done, please pop through a WhatsApp to 072-567-1567. So on and off for 2 years through East Africa. And then, of course, you look around the map and, somebody said to me about the trip I'm taking in May, why are you going there? And my response was, well, why not there? There's so many places to go. How did you choose the Balkans? Anchen, what went into the planning of that trip?
It was sort of, we thought both our children are in Germany.
Okay.
And we thought this is a time now where we can go a little bit more to the northern hemisphere.
Okay.
Our main aim is South America, but
Right.
we're not ready for that yet. So we sort of thought, let's do something we know. So we sort of shipped the bikes up to Germany and then traversed fairly quickly through to the Balkans. And then our main aim was actually to go to Turkey and Bulgaria, Romania,
Armenia
and Georgia.
Yes.
Like those countries, because Europe itself, everybody knows Europe, but nobody knows the Southeast Europe.
Yeah,
that,
Azerbaijan,
so
Armenia,
we wanted to
Georgia
go to
corner,
places
yeah.
that people don't go to.
Is that half the appeal? I mean, as much as you say you love the interaction with people, it sounds like you also love the experience of being somewhere that you know not that many people have been before, where you're not crowded, and you can have that experience of just sort of being one with the road, if I can put it in a sort of a Jedi way. Is that part of the appeal for you?
Absolutely, and there's so much beauty, and for us it's about nature and people, but the beauty out there. And you just realize how big the world is and how amazing the world is. And you can't grasp it all either. After 2-3 months, we've got just too much. You can't take photos anymore. You need a bit of a break just to realize what you've actually been witnessing.
Sure. So what were you witnessing? Let's talk a little bit more. The most recent trip, as you said, Turkey is part of it, as well as then exploring the Balkans and into that wedge of Georgia and Armenia. You're not allowed into Azerbaijan, are you? No, I think that's a border you're not allowed to cross at this point.
We couldn't go in there.
But where did you go in the end?
We did 17 countries, so about 25,000 kilometers. So apart from the typical northern countries, the Balkans of Kosovo and Montenegro, Albania, Turkey, Greece, Armenia, Georgia, and a few Croatia and Slovenia and Bosnia. That sort of whole. What you notice is the countries are very small. Some of them are like 600 kilometers by 300 kilometers. It's not like South Africa where you can take a year to go through. Some of these, a week is
enough to see the whole country.
Although Turkey, we did manage to do about nearly 3 months in it, because it's a huge country. So everybody knows the west part of Turkey. So we went down there fairly fast and then moved into the eastern side. And that's where you, almost on the border of Iran, where you really see the real Turkish people. You don't see them in the Cappadocia, the beautiful tourist places. You see them, but you don't see them.
Interesting comment. So eastern Turkey, and I was in Turkey a year or two ago. Hands down, my favorite thing about Turkey was the breakfast. For as long as I live, a Turkish breakfast is going to be high on the bucket list. But also wonderful people, so hospitable, so welcoming, so friendly. They did feel quite a lot like South Africans to us in some respects. I wouldn't have any kind of impression at all, though, of many of these countries that you visited. Do you want to, in terms of the sites you saw, particular cities that stood out, what do you wish more people knew about without causing a horde of tourists to descend on it and maybe spoil it? Were there any highlights like that you'd pick out?
So for me, he's more the factor oak, but for me, from the Georgia side, Georgia and Armenia are countries I've not heard much about at all. So we went into Georgia, and there was these huge mountains, everything green, quite simple people living there. Very much passes. You drive through nature passes that you think you can't hold the bike up straight. So really scary roads. Yeah. And then we go into Armenia, and suddenly the mountains are rocky. It's arid. It's like a contrast. You literally 20 k's from the other side of the border, the mountains change. And the life up there, high up in the mountains, for me, probably those two countries, the high up in the mountains, how they live with the flock of sheep and literally living for 6 months, not being able to go down because of being too high and too cold.
Gosh, amazing.
So, that was for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unlike Georgia, the passes are 2,800 meters. From October to May, you can't drive them because they're all snowed under. So there's this tiny window. And it's just that beauty and especially the flowers, etc. So in autumn we did Montenegro, and those red leaves and those yellow leaves, and you drive through these mountain passes. All tar. We found very little gravel on this tour. There's a beauty there. It is just unbeholden. So and then the other country was Albania, which we knew nothing about, and to know they only had 33 years of democracy. They were the strongest communist country, more than China and Soviet Union. We know so little.
Yeah,
we know so little.
And they're so open for tourists. Yeah. That's one thing we found about all these sort of Southeastern Europe countries, that they first of all have never heard of South Africa. The one guy was 25 years at a border working there, and he says he's never seen South Africans passing through there.
Gosh.
And then first of all and showing them where we are, and then getting to the point where they go like, but why are you visiting our country? And then we were like, this is amazing. And then they soften up and they feed us. We were fed morning, noon and night. They're just so hospitable and just want to let you be part of their family lives. That really touched me, because I thought it was only Africa people warm-hearted, sort of what I've experienced. And then we
Yeah.
go there and these people are just, they can't get enough of making you feel at ease.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I hope that encourages a few more people to consider exploring a little bit off the beaten track, as it were. You can do so vicariously by following Anchen and Bernd's Instagram channel on our bikes.life, which is full of the most beautiful photographs of their travels. And honestly, I was looking this morning at the picture of you jumping into the water, that crystal blue water in Turkey, and feeling very, very envious. Before we let you go, though, what's the next plan? You said South America is the big dream, but you're working up towards that. Have you started planning the next trip already?
The planning is the one that actually takes the most time. It's fine to do it for 2-3 weeks, but when you do it for 6 months, it's a challenge. So this year we'd like to do Iceland, Finland, Norway, that whole top area there. And the window is so small because of the weather.
Yeah.
We don't do particularly well with cold. We also Africans, we like the
He
sun.
says, telling us they're going to Iceland, Finland, and Norway. Yeah, what could go wrong?
In their summer.
In their summer. Thank heavens for that. Well, in that case, it is a conversation I hope to be continued at a later date. You can give us the Ice Chronicles feedback another time. But thank you. What a delight to have you with us in studio, sharing some of this extraordinary experience with us. Thank you. And thanks for, it's very gratifying to us to know that you're listening to Cape Talk in your motorbike helmets while you're traveling.
Thank you for being able to chat to you.
You're the best station there is.
Say no more. Did someone get that recorded, please? Anchen and Bernd, thank you very, very much for joining us. And to others listening who've enjoyed this, we've enjoyed it so much that we want to do this again. So I want to throw it back to you, our audience. If you have had an experience of traveling somewhere a little different, or traveling somewhere familiar but experiencing it in a not particularly normal way, not the usual tourist beaten track. I want your travel stories of countries that not many people visit, and of places here in South Africa that you've had an extraordinary experience of. Once a month, we're going to try and get a Cape Talk listener into studio to share their travel adventures with us going forward. That's our plan for 2025. If you would like it to be you, please just pop me an email to pippah@capetalk.co.za.
Travel isn't just about destinations. It's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Relebogile Mabotja, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place, whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.